kind of like a, I think people like Mike because I'm kind of a unique kind of character.
And I have
You just see how games and possessions are more intense, how they mean more. I think the U.S. is going to obviously win.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Nothing But Respect. This is a crossover episode, a long time in the making. We are very excited about it. I'm joined, as always, by Patrick Redford, a staff writer for Defector, and we are joined by a very special guest, part of the sports podcast Insurgency, which I will talk about in a little while. Madeline Hill of many things, including the excellent Impersonal Foul Substack and the it's still, would you still call the Sports Gossip Show new?
Yeah, I think
still
it's
feels
new.
The
It's
new,
less than a year old, yeah.
It's less than 6 months old.
Absolute smash hit and excellent podcast, the Sports Gossip Show with Charlotte Wilder. Madeline, Patrick, how are we doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thriving. Happy to be here.
Beautiful. I'm happy to talk to both of you today. I want to do a quick bit of housekeeping, which is that we talked a few weeks ago with another member of the podcast Sports Media Insurgency, Ocks LARB, about a podcast, about a piece he was writing about the city of New Orleans. That piece is out, which is good. I highly suggest everybody check it out. And a kind of exciting thing is that he released his real name, his government name. So go check out Jack Rothschild's work. He's an excellent writer. So that's exciting. Madeline, we want to talk to you about a number of things, but I think the first place is just podcaster to podcaster.
Yeah.
You guys started, you and Charlotte started the Sports Gossip Show about 6 months ago, as we were talking about. Can you tell the story of how this show came to be?
Yeah, so we started the podcast. It kind of grew out of my Substack and Personal Foul. I started at the end of 2020. Obviously, at the time, there weren't that many Substacks in existence, period, but especially in the sports space, as I'm sure you both know, because I found there was a gap in coverage about sports that spoke to me. I always say in Personal Foul, as if Bravo and ESPN had a baby. It was, not meant to be something that was like sensationalized coverage around sports gossip. Supposed to be, somewhat through a critical lens. At least I try to do that as much as possible. Because I just felt like it's like, I like watching SportsCenter, but they're not talking about who's married to who and who's getting a divorce and what bad SpawnCon deal some NBA player is doing. And I also didn't find that in TMZ sports content, and nor is that the outlet for any critical analysis of sports gossip. And so I did the Substack for a really long time. And then I started doing some guest kind of collaboration posts. And one of them was a roundup of NBA Finals gossip, I think is what it was, at the end of last season. And Charlotte wrote a little blurb for my newsletter. And afterwards, I was like, we should get on a call and chat. We had never met in person, never spoken on the phone. We just knew each other on the internet, as many people meet people in the media space do and know. And so we got on the phone, and we were on the phone for 2 hours over the summer. And by the end of it, I had pitched to her essentially like, I really want to do this podcast. I want to turn Impersonal Foul into some sort of audio format because no one's doing it. Would you be interested? And she was like, oh my God, I thought you'd never ask. So the rest was kind of history from there. And then our first episode went live at the end of September of last year, which is crazy. And yeah, we're doing it all ourselves. Learned how to use Riverside, something I never thought I would do. But now I feel like we figured it out, Launched a YouTube channel. That actually was more challenging than anything.
What has surprised you? What have you learned about just in the broadest possible sense, sports or gossip or sports and gossip, that you didn't expect doing this project?
That's a great question. I think the biggest thing is how much people crave this type of content and we're too afraid to talk about it. Because, there's the Ringer of the world, which I feel like is kind of the blueprint of kind of sports culture convergence, that exists. But it's interesting, the emails we get from men and women talking about there's not a place for this sort of content. And that has been the most shocking thing. I mean, it's something we suspected that people were craving. But I don't think until we did it, did we actually realize how many people wanted it. And the interesting thing too, is I think looking at gossip on paper, gossip is branded as something fairly, geared towards women, I would say. But really the reality is, and Charlotte and I talk about this all the time, sports news is just gossip for men in a way that's socially acceptable. At least this is what we think. And so it's been interesting, like, and our audience is a lot of men, and they are like giving the same thought and care that we do in each episode, talking about these stories that you would give to like a player analysis on ESPN. And I think that's been the most interesting thing, is that people are not coming for us like in the comments, like, oh, these two women are talking about sports gossip, how stupid. I mean, we get those occasionally, but for the most part, like the online conversations we get around our show have been so thoughtful and insightful that I was like, oh, people want this type of content. And I think ultimately, like in the sports media complex, they were maybe too afraid to try it. And I think because, I don't come from the sports world, Charlotte does, like, I don't care. I'm like, I'm not a sports expert. I'm not like, I don't have like a decade of experience working for like a legacy media company and sports broadcasting behind me and like, a reputation to uphold. I'm like, I don't care. I'm like, I'm just interested in the gossip and the personal life section of these athletes. And if someone else doesn't want to talk about it, that's fine, but I certainly will.
And like that is all like super interesting. And I feel like one big takeaway is like, this isn't frivolous. Like just because it is gossip and isn't like hard hitting news or whatever, like they're actually like, these things matter. Like one of the Defector podcasts, obviously Normal Gossip, like has this kind of like big thesis that like, I mean, it's sort of similar to the old Gawker thesis. Like yesterday's gossip is tomorrow's news. Like this is the stuff that actually matters. Like the impersonal dynamics, like Zion Williamson get off Snapchat. Like that is like that you did that post, I don't know, a year or 2 years ago. And like, you can see like, in his sort of horny bum era, like why that matters.
Yeah, no, it's true. I think you can also explain a lot of what's happening on the field in sports via what's going on off the field in the personal lives of these players. And I'm not even saying like who they're dating, but it does have an impact on their work. I mean, think about it in your own lives, in your work. Like if something's going on in your personal life, your work is going to be impacted in some way, positive or negative. And I think in the sports world, they're always looking, oh, the numbers. Well, last season he did this. He scored this many points. And it's like, okay, well, he got a divorce in the offseason. Maybe that's why he's actually sucking, and it's not that complicated. But no one wants to say that, obviously, but we will. But yeah, I agree. I think being able to use gossip as a way to have a thoughtful conversation around what's going on in culture, what's going on politically. I mean, we did an entire episode about the Aaron Rodgers documentary. And like the kind of conclusion of it was like, we had this whole conversation and existential crisis around media literacy and around sports documentaries in general. And we're like, wait, was this even a documentary or was this just propaganda for Aaron Rodgers? And like, to me, those are the more interesting takeaways than like him doing ayahuasca. That was just like a clip you saw on TikTok, but it actually didn't really tell you much about him. And that you can use a sort of off the field content to explain bigger issues or help, process things that are happening in sports or not.
To your point about we only talk about a player's divorce or something, or we sort of evade that conversation. The only time it does come up is when like 10 different horrible things happen to a player. Then all of a sudden it's like, oh, okay, like I guess JJ Redick's house burned down. I guess now we can talk about like the fact that he has a world outside of basketball, or like right. I was thinking with the Luka trade, there's he's a person now. Like he got traded and he got told he wasn't a long-time fit for the Mavs. He must be like having emotions or whatever. And it's like all of these players are having emotions all the time.
All the time.
And like, now that you both mentioned that, like the kind of view from nowhere and newspaper-ese version of these sports stories that like treats all this stuff as like fundamentally not worth mentioning is like maybe more dishonest than like the just straight gossip like coverage. Like if you just knew about sports based on like Instagram drama and like who's getting divorced and like why all athlete weddings look the same, I guess you probably will have like a more critical and insightful like working knowledge of how sports like and power structures like actually work than if you just watch like SportsCenter.
Yeah, like I always think, I feel like the best example of personal life kind of getting in the way of sports analysis is Tom Brady retiring and unretiring. Because if you remember, a lot of that had to do with what was going on with Giselle, and he made this promise that he, was going to retire, and then he didn't. She ended up divorcing him, obviously, and having a baby with a jiu-jitsu instructor, which I love for her. But it was interesting because you could clearly see him not deteriorate I don't mean that in a really bad way, but like he just looked unwell. I mean, you remember that press conference when he just like, he looked like he was going through it. And it's like that clearly was impacted by what was going on in his personal life. And it felt like people only started talking about that at the 11th hour. When it's like, if we had the sports gossip show then, it's like, we've been talking about that from the beginning. It's like, if you look at, okay, what is he looking like? How is he speaking in press conferences? What is he posting on Instagram? All of that stuff kind of shapes the narrative and maybe would help explain maybe why he was retiring and not playing as well as he wished he would.
Right. Like this is a guy who refused to eat a strawberry 4 years before he retired. Like you think that possibly that could have been affecting his ability to like relate to people in his locker room.
And it's also why he started a YouTube channel in his divorce era. I mean, never forget, he now has a vlog.
Who among us? Yeah.
Who among us?
Okay, well, before we get into the after we intellectualizing this for a little while, and then we're going to talk about Bill Belichick's 24-year-old girlfriend. But the last thing I want to kind of meta talk about the sports gossip show is what you were saying about the all these other shows. There's a tendency in general with some of these shows, any new show. Forget for a second that it's two women talking together. There's this constant need in the early stages to prove your bona fides and be like, I crush all this tape. I look at all this stuff I watch, and it gets in the way of what you actually want to be talking about. And then you throw the kind of course added end of like the onslaught of trolls or whatever talking about women being like, oh, women shouldn't talk about sports. What has this I have found that just like leaning into what you guys are interested in is the breath of fresh air. Was that hard? Did you guys come by that? Did you know that was the North Star, or did you have to learn a hard lesson around that? What happened there?
I don't think we've really had to learn a hard lesson around it because I think, like I said, people have been so thoughtful about the content because we always position it as we're not the sports experts. Well, I'm not. Charlotte is. Charlotte's an actual sports journalist. But I am not a sports expert, and I'm coming at it with that curiosity. So I'm not coming in knowing stats anyways. I couldn't tell you what a blitz is. I don't care to know. And I think if you're listening to it for sports analysis, I don't know why you ended up on our For You page anyways. But no, I don't think we've necessarily learned a hard lesson, but I think from the beginning, we've just been really clear about the perspective of kind of defining like, what is the subject matter we're going to talk about? What are we not going to talk about that we're not comfortable saying? And really kind of honing in on like, we are a podcast for people who maybe are the biggest sports fans in the world, but also care about what's going on Tom Brady's YouTube channel. And we're not here to kind of give that analysis. And we've always had that clear perspective. But you can see, to your point, there are some podcasts that sort of touch on the gossip piece of sports, but then they're also still trying to ham in sports facts in a way that I don't think it really works because there isn't a really clear perspective. And I think for us, even though that sometimes means we leave out some topics because we're not talking about these hard-hitting sports facts, but it will help us, I think, more in the long run. That we're, just being more tunnel vision into the sports gossip world rather than trying to like throw in what a blitz is. But I will also say something Charlotte and I always talk about is we want people to be able to come into the podcast being either the biggest sports fan in the world or having no idea who Tom Brady is, and that we always set up in the podcast like who someone is, because it may be the first time they're listening. We have no idea what their sports knowledge is. Whereas so many other sports podcasts, if you just turn them on at a random minute, they're just listing off names of players and facts, assuming their entire audience knows who and what they're talking about, which maybe a majority of them do, but I would guess a portion don't. And I think that just really isolates your chances of capturing a broader audience. And it takes 2 seconds, but it's interesting. There are just so many sports podcasts who like do not set up even who a name is you're saying. It's like, is that a coach? Is that a GM? Is that a player? And that's been something too we've really tried to do to not, isolate listeners.
I think that's really interesting, and I think is sort of like broadly in line with like consumptive shifts and how people like think about and like receive sports knowledge just generally, like over the past 5 or so years. Like I'm thinking about Unrivaled specifically, and what makes it so good is that like they put all their shit on TikTok and Instagram, and they understand that like it's almost like not like a gossip forward league. Like that sounds like I'm calling it like unserious because it's like women's basketball, but it's basically like they are broadcasting it in a way that is like very coherent with like how people like actually like get their sports news and shit. Like they're just on Instagram or TikTok or whatever. And like today, like very precise ball knowledge. And like if you're talking about like Amen Thompson's like X-Raptor FIP advanced defensive stats numbers, you could actually like learn the same thing about what makes him a special player from something like that versus like talking about like his insane AAU dad. Like
Exactly.
basically you will learn kind of similar things. Like one is more relatable, and I think like people like understand what it's like to have a father, you know?
Yes.
Versus, like,
Yeah, you'll get to the same conclusion either way. Yeah, it's just what your entry point is.
Mm-hmm. So I guess, yeah, like to get back to Harry's question and sort of your comment, like the thesis of the show was good. Like,
Right.
You guys
well,
just like were
thanks.
right, basically.
Yeah,
And-
it's been interesting to your point about social media. Like, you know, I work in social. I do social media consulting for my job outside of my sports gossip empire we're trying to build. But it's been interesting because, you know, we started the YouTube channel, I think maybe like a month and a half in. We didn't start doing clips right away. It took a little while. And it's been crazy the growth we've seen on TikTok and Instagram. I mean, we're getting like 1,000 followers almost a week on both platforms, which is kind of nuts. But to your point, it's like I know from my social background, like where the audiences live. And we've seen a direct correlation. Like the number of times we've had a clip go viral, we're charting higher in Apple, like pretty much every single time we see a spike. But it is interesting, like the kind of TikTokification of podcasts. I'm sure we could have a 2-hour discussion about it. That it's nice that like while we are being surfaced on people's For You pages from strangers we don't know, that they are actually going to listen and they're not actually just like watching the clip and then never following us or then going to subscribe on Apple. Because there are so many podcasts I feel like I see on TikTok that I'm like, I've never actually listened to an episode of this podcast, you know?
Right. And figuring out what makes one of the former versus the latter.
Yeah.
That dovetails perfectly to a bit of some cultural exchange that I would like to do on this podcast, because we Patrick and I have a bunch of incredible knowledge in our heads, but it is different than some of the knowledge you have, and so I would like to do some exchanging. And one of the key ones is your podcast. What you were just talking about is outlining kind of wanting to be for everybody, wanting to be able to get in at every step. The Nothing But Respect company line is we want to be impenetrable to pretty much everybody with the exception of like 6,000 freaks in the kind of New Jersey, Metro New York, and Oakland area. So with all of that in mind, can you give us like some of the gossip, like give us like the big gossip stories of maybe the last 6 months? Like what are the essential, headlines in the sports gossip universe right now?
Oh my God, great question. I think number one, which we maybe get into it in a little bit, is Bill Belichick starting to date a 24-year-old named Jordan Hudson, and how she is essentially, I think, running his life now, including his social media accounts. That's our running bit on the show. That has been a big one that we are just consumed by and fascinated by, and I'm sure we'll talk about it in more detail. I'm still fascinated, even though it did not technically happen in the last 6 months. It feels like headlines have not stopped. Is Larsa Pippen, Scottie Pippen's ex-wife, dating Michael Jordan's son, Marcus Jordan? Most recently, Marcus was just in headlines for getting a DUI, and at the same time, Larsa Pippen is posting on Instagram that she's eating pasta at some restaurant, and they are allegedly broken up. But that story also continues to fascinate me. Another one
Well, he respects Mariah Carey, so you got to let him rock for that.
Yes, he was demanding Mariah Carey while he was getting booked in jail.
Wait. What are you talking
wait, yeah, you didn't hear about this, Harry?
No.
No.
So he got arrested for a DUI and I think possession of cocaine, allegedly, again, all alleged,
Okay.
And
To be fair, that would make you a better driver.
Yeah, while he was
a little high.
I know. And while he was in jail, he was demanding that they play Mariah Carey. And I quote, he said, "Play some Mariah Carey up in this bitch."
Really crazy jail music.
Crazy jail music. That's not what I would want to hear.
Not in my top 100 of jail music.
No, never. Some other ones, obviously Taylor Swift dating Travis Kelce and Roger Goodell not getting a field kiss moment with the Chiefs winning in the scripted or not scripted Super Bowl saga. So that I think that I could talk about that for hours. And then one that always particularly interests me is, I think I'm pronouncing her name correctly, Drea Michelle. She's like an influencer. She has some kids, and she just, I think, gave birth or is pregnant with is it Jalen Green who plays for the Rockets?
Oh yeah, she's like twice his age, right?
Yes. So
Or like she has a son who is his age.
Yeah, she has a son who I believe is the same age as her her boyfriend / father of her child, which I love.
They can hang out. They have so much in common. Like
They have so much in
beautiful.
common. Well, I think I did a newsletter about it, and I was like, what do they talk about? I don't know. What do Gen Z kids? I mean, they're both 22, I think. What do they talk about? Like video games, TikTok dances. Hey, stepdad, show me your new favorite TikTok trend. Like what? What are
There's
they
like
talking
one
about?
very, very big common conversation that a lot of 22-year-olds are probably having that like they absolutely cannot have.
Right.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true.
Or it'll be
Yeah,
like
Jalen
the
can't
White
be
Lotus.
like, so you smooching? And then the son will not ask he will not reciprocate that question.
No, definitely doesn't want to know the answer. That was just
Dad,
a ramble.
Can we play
of
one-on-one again? I'd rather you dunk on me than us have to have the birds and the bees conversation.
Yeah, no one wants that. No one wants that.
I did forget about the Jalen Green one. So
Yeah.
okay, it sounds like age discourse is in the sports
Yes, you're right.
zone.
Yes.
To me, coming in, my two thoughts about the Bill Belichick thing are obviously it is almost hilarious how much older he is. It's like the half your age plus 7. He's doing like the square root times 30
Yes.
or whatever. Like
Yes.
he's got a new mathematical thing. But the other component of this that I'm finding is that Bill Belichick himself is also just like an anti-horny guy. Like he strikes me as one of the last public figures to be engaging in this sort of horny like depravity. I mean, such that whatever. I don't know. I guess I don't want to weigh in on if you should or shouldn't be dating somebody like this. But it's pretty like he is a curveball for a guy. Like it's almost like unserious.
It's
to me.
unserious. I know it is, and it's also so shocking. And Charlotte and I talk about this all the time on the podcast that his public persona up to dating Jordan was so dramatically different than how he is being perceived publicly now. I mean,
Right.
he was in a Dunkin' Donuts Super Bowl commercial with this girl and Ben Affleck. I mean, that is like, would you have ever predicted that he was going to do that, and let alone have his 24-year-old girlfriend also be in the commercial?
Yeah, I feel like his public persona before this was like guy who eats tape for 23 hours, lives in his garage, sleeps in a trash can, like has no emotions outside of like the football world. So it's like seeing him as like a person at all is weird. And then it's like that incongruity is totally like amplified by like the fact that his GF like wears her jacket over her elbows and like the 24-year-old style. And like he like doesn't know how to add a link to his Instagram
No, he does
account.
not, and that he even has an Instagram account. I mean,
Right.
that is like the craziest thing, and is so antithetical to who Bill Belichick was up to 6 months ago, whenever they started dating. And we also talk about this too on the podcast, that we're fully convinced that Jordan is running his Instagram and I mean maybe his life, and as like
Can we
I
go
don't
through
know,
that
a
theory?
girlfriend
Actually, I found
manager.
this post super interesting.
Yes. So he put the one where he posted the link
Yeah.
tree.
Made me
So-
laugh out loud seeing.
Yeah, it was so
I
funny.
highly suggest you guys check out Madeline's post just to see the visual of this. It's really funny.
So, you know, we think, again, on our show, we look at Instagram accounts, what's going on in personal lives to kind of understand maybe why these public figures in sports are making the decisions they're making. So Bill Belichick has his Instagram account, and we very quickly realized that a lot of the captions are written in the same language that Jordan writes her Instagram captions in. So then very quickly, Charlotte very smartly came to the conclusion, I think Jordan's running his Instagram account. I don't even think it's up for debate, honestly.
And
Like,
wait, what word is this? Word choice analysis? Is
Word
this like
choice.
syntax?
word choice, she
Right,
knows how
allegedly.
to do a collab post on Instagram, which there is no way Bill
Yeah.
Belichick knows how to accept a collaboration post tag in his DMs. There's no way. No way. Absolutely no way. So that's obviously her. I mean, she's 24. She knows how to use Instagram.
Right, she definitely knows how to do that. Yeah.
And if you look at how she writes her Instagram caption, she's constantly using really big words that don't make sense for the caption.
Oh, hell yeah.
So like if one we mentioned this a couple weeks ago, she used overtly when I think she meant overly or over enthusiastically. It was not the wrong word, but it was not the word you would use.
Yeah.
And then if you look at Bill Belichick's Instagram posts, they're also kind of written in the same way.
Awesome.
And so
man.
again, so that's kind of the setting the scene that she's
I'm now-
running his Instagram.
I'm sorry to cut you off. I'm just imagining Bill Belichick talking in the like eternal present TikTok sent like verb tense where he's like answering a question. He's like, the way food is a vibe when you're hungry is so.
Honestly, I feel like he'll be on TikTok soon.
Oh God.
She's gonna make him dance for the camera.
I mean, honestly, I could see it. Yeah. So she runs his Instagram account, and up to this point, we've assumed she's posting on it. And then a couple weeks ago, Bill Belichick posted 2 Instagram story slides promoting his new book, which before that, he had promoted the book in feed with a very clean, looks nice post of the book cover, clearly probably posted by Jordan. And he posted to his Instagram story. The first slide is the zoomed in Instagram post, but it's blurry. You know how you can share it to your story and it just pops up as a square. Somehow he made it pop up zoomed in, which that takes effort to do. You can't, that doesn't pop up like that when you press share to story. It comes up as a square. It doesn't come up zoomed
like
in.
Only a boomer could figure out how to do. Like, it's actually something that I don't even know if I could do.
Correct.
On purpose,
it's impossible.
trying.
You couldn't. So he posts that
I remember
slide.
Jason Whitlock once posted a photo. It wasn't a screenshot. It was like a phone pic of his screen, but then it was also tilted like 10 or 15 degrees. So we were wondering like, okay, what are the set of circumstances that led him to doing this? And it sounds like this is like kind of what Bill was doing.
No, that's exactly. You're 100% correct. So that's the first slide. And then the next slide is just a blank slide with text. And it's a Linktree link, presumably to buy or pre-order the book. But it's not the link sticker you use on Instagram, which obviously we know Bill Belichick, Super Bowl champion, has no idea how to post a link sticker. He might have Super Bowl rings. He doesn't know how to do the link sticker. Or
even
a
I
GIF
struggle
for that
with the
matter.
link sticker. Yeah,
exactly. So we post it. You can't click the link, obviously. It's just text of a link, which it's the same as when you see someone on Instagram put a link in an Instagram caption. Like, it's 2025. Why are we still doing that?
It's take a look, y'all.
Yeah, and our indication is that he posted this because they were in a fight, and he was like, I'm going to do it myself. Stop trying to control me, because, again, he's Bill Belichick. He's a smart guy. He's run the Patriots. He's won multiple Super Bowls. He was probably like, I want to do this myself. And she was like, you know what? Fine. You do it. You post it. And this is what the result was. So I feel like she probably won that argument.
I mean, that is the award-winning analysis right there. I didn't even think about the fact that it was, because you're right. I don't even. Why would he do?
Because she wouldn't post that. She would never post that. She's too online. She's like me. She's chronically online. She's not posting link text as a post.
I feel like I feel like the Super Bowl was very big for them as a couple. Like the NFL was like doing posts of both of them. Like, in what ways did the media spectacle of the Super Bowl, like how did they use it, basically? Like, it seems like the ideal launching pad. Oh,
that girl was using that weekend, or week really for that matter, to her advantage. The week started off, they hosted I think I can only describe it as I believe she called it, I'll check her Instagram, an awareness dinner. Not charity event, for people who were around when the terrorist attack happened in New Orleans. Not a fun topic, but a interesting event choice. And it was basically, she posted an Instagram post with this graphic that said Bill Belichick was going to be there. I think someone else was going to be there. And it was for anyone who was impacted by the terrorist attack. And so to me, that indication, it was called like an awareness event or something. It was not for a charity. It was just for people in
awareness event.
Awareness dinner is a perfect phrase.
Yeah, it is. It's really good.
An awareness event. And to me, that was the first thing that she did, to be like, oh, I want to be like, I want to be invited to, like, do you know what? This is so niche and maybe too LA of me, but there's a charity gala called Baby to Baby. Do you know what this is?
No.
What or like the
AmFAR
or like AmFAR. Do you know what AmFAR? They do like a charity gala. Any of these?
Okay.
Or like,
sorry, I was going to guess American Media Friends All Round.
I can't remember what it stands for, but there are these 2 huge charity events that are basically like celebrity, like fun party.
Kind of
it's not
Met Gala for Los Angeles.
The Met Gala for a charity thing. And I feel like Jordan is trying to position herself to be invited to some of these top charity functions to eventually get invited to the ultimate charity function, which is the Met Gala.
Got it.
And she's trying to position herself and tie herself to these public events. Obviously, the tragedy that happened in New Orleans was horrible. And she was like, how can I insert myself to do something good which I think her intentions were good, but it's also like, why is she putting on this event, And so to me, that was the first step of Super Bowl week, that she was like, I want to be kind of attached to what's happening at the Super Bowl and the cultural conversations that are happening in the world. This is a good way to do it. And then she followed that up. I believe it was the next night she attended a red carpet event with Bill with a purse made out of a log.
Totally.
Oh, yeah. Good stuff.
Why would you do that other than you want people to talk about it?
Awareness.
Yeah.
Awareness.
Dude.
Different type of awareness, but awareness.
Bill Belichick hitting the Met Gala in like a head to toe leather boaty, like frail, frayed like suit would be so sick. Or just like
I would die.
Black Rick on, like head to toe, drop crotch. He's got his Super Bowl rings dangling from it.
Oh my God. No, I would love it. And then they went to the is it NFL Honors that they have in New Orleans? I think. They show up to NFL Honors, obviously. She is wearing her, initially we thought it was a Super Bowl ring, one of Bill's Super Bowl rings, but I believe it was her cheerleading ring from college. Yep. She had like a ring, and Bill is wearing all of his Super Bowl rings. And they have this red carpet moment. So it's like she was clearly trying to drum up press. And then I think it was the next day, she wore an Atlanta Falcons Super Bowl championship T-shirt to troll the Falcons, obviously, because, Bill was maybe going to go coach for the Falcons. And they were photographed in like the Daily Mail. So it's like, this girl knows what she's doing. And she used the Super Bowl to her advantage to put herself front and center via charity events, red carpet moments, or just trolling Falcons fans. Like she's not dumb. She definitely knows what she's doing. And I do think it's working, because to your point, like the NFL posted them in feed on Instagram, which is crazy. It's crazy. It's crazy.
Yeah. Honestly, lay it all out like that. Like I'm so impressed, honestly, to just like not only raise awareness, but just use the whole week in that like very strategic way. And just like, I don't know, like if you have a totally bloodless view of it and just think about how much attention she's gotten and how like smartly and subtly she worked everything to get that. It's like, honestly, respect.
She knows what she's doing. I think people are underestimating her and being like, oh, this is Bill's silly 24-year-old girlfriend. But I think if you take 1 second to think about it, it's like she has completely changed the public perception about Bill Belichick. Arguably one of the best coaches in history in any sport. And that is like remarkable that this 24-year-old has done that in a very short amount of time.
It also sort of inverts the regular kind of like lewd understanding of like a gold digging or like a young woman with an older man situation, but where they're actually kind of engaged in this mutually beneficial like clout attention economy apparatus. Like it's a weirdly win-win situation.
Right. No, it definitely is.
That's I have two final questions about this, unless Patrick, you've got one.
No, I was just thinking about like trying to say something about the fact that he is literally 3 times her age. And I feel like that's only sort of relevant as like, that is like the first thing you notice about them. And it's like that they are like kind of behaving so normally, and like that, like they're like warping the attention around that. Like they're not like trying to skirt around it. I don't know. I just find it like interesting.
Yeah. She posted an Instagram post talking about like that. She was like, I have different biological preferences about who I want to date or something like that. And you're like, are you talking about that he's old? I don't know what that means.
So she definitely crazy way to say that.
It's exactly.
She's
you should
a
look at her
poet,
Instagram post.
yeah.
She is a poet. She, I believe, got her undergraduate degree in philosophy. So do with that information what you
poet
will.
and a philosopher, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Okay, so my two final questions, which do actually get to the core of this specific thing, which is 1, where did they meet, and 2, have they had sex?
I believe they've definitely had sex for sure. For sure. I mean, listen,
sources
not my
are...
personal life.
Right.
Obviously, they can decide if your body, your choice, you can do what you want. But I would, they're dating. I would guess that.
Sure.
Have.
Okay. But
they've expressed a biological preference for each other.
Based on the biological. You can read the bio. Okay, sorry.
I would assume so. If they love each other, it's consensual. Do you? I don't really care what they do. They met on a plane, allegedly, like in 2021, which again also was kind of weird. But apparently they met on an airplane. So, yeah.
I wonder. All right. That's cool. Honestly, love is real. Like,
love is real. I mean, here's the thing. I think, obviously there's a lot of conversation around them about the age gap. And yes, it is extreme age gap.
Yeah.
I don't want to date a 73-year-old. That's not what I want to do. But if she wants to do that, fine.
Sure.
But I think the thing that people need to understand, it takes two people to tango. It's like, it's not just her. Like, he is choosing this himself. He has grown children who are, I believe, 40 years old. So it's like he's choosing this too. And I think a major part of this discussion also needs to be about the fact that this man is choosing to date a 24-year-old, and like, let him do it, I guess. But it doesn't mean we're not going to not analyze Jordan's Instagram posts that she's obviously posting on behalf of Bill.
Right.
Yeah, if she's smart, she should be photographed holding a copy of Sally Rooney's latest, because there's a bunch of age gap shit in there.
Oh, I would love that. No, she would read, what was her first book?
Normal People.
Normal People. She would read that now and be like, this book, I just discovered this book, you know? And she would go on a journey, a Sally Rooney journey. I would honestly love that if she started a book club and her first book was Normal People.
Was Normal
in
People
2025.
Yeah. My year of rest and relaxation next.
Yeah, right.
Just goes through the early 2020s girl book canon.
Yes.
Okay. The next thing I wanted to hit, because we are always something on this podcast. We're always looking out for deep state agents. You know, like names that of folks who are like, what are they doing here? I've never heard, kind of the people behind the people. And you and Charlotte were talking about a woman named Tree Payne that started to set some alarm bells off for me.
Yes.
Who is Tree Payne? And
Tree
is
Payne.
that her real name?
That is her real name, apparently.
Okay.
Tree Payne is Taylor Swift's publicist, at least on paper. But she's been working with Taylor Swift forever. Has red hair. I don't know why I haven't been called to play her in a movie, but it's fine.
Mm-hmm.
But she is essentially a publicist, but I think kind of more operates as like the leader of the Taylor Swift universe.
Yeah.
And she's the behind the scenes. If anyone listening, you know, is a sports fan, obviously, she is the Rich Paul of the Taylor Swift universe. It's the best person I could compare to. I think she definitely keeps state secrets. She knows everything. I think she probably knows where all the bodies are buried. Obviously, metaphorically, Taylor, I don't think you're a murderer. But she runs the show. She knows everything about Taylor Swift. She goes on tour with her. She's often at red carpet events with Taylor. So she does things that traditional publicists would do, but then she does kind of seem like she operates at a higher level and sort of just runs the Taylor universe in whatever vague way that means.
And has that ever bubbled up? Like, are there, you know, with Rich Paul, there are traces to those who are following of his influence on kind of like his fingerprints on things. Does Mrs. Payne have things like that?
Well, something we talked about recently, and again, this is just our own speculation, but Kylie Kelsey, Travis's sister-in-law, was on Alex Cooper's podcast talking about just her own life. But then obviously Alex asked about how she found out that Travis was dating Taylor Swift. And in the episode, she says, Jason and I were told together. And so on our show, we speculated, obviously this is based on no factual information whatsoever, just our own thoughts, is that Tree Payne sits them down to go through a presentation of what it's like to date Taylor Swift, like the FAQs, the onboarding. Here you got to sign the NDA now. You know, obviously they're all under NDA. And so I think that's been an interesting thing to think about, like, especially as it comes to dating Travis Kelce, and navigating the relationship with the NFL. I would imagine that Tree Payne is probably pretty instrumental in navigating that for Taylor and helping figure out, how many times are they showing Taylor during a game? I'm sure Tree Payne is involved in that. Where Taylor sits, I'm sure Tree Payne is involved in that. Security, I'm sure she's involved with that. And so just thinking about like her being involved somehow in Jason and Kylie finding out was just a funny thing. We were just brainstorming. Like, I do feel like she was involved. Like, I think it would be silly to not think she was.
Yeah, that's like, that's really interesting. And like, it's very 2025-y that like, everyone who is passively consuming Taylor Swift X NFL content, like, knows to some degree that like it's extremely stage managed, that like there's nothing really organic, and that's like totally fine, which I think why being interested in someone like Tree totally makes sense, because it's like, okay, you know that all of this is like being shown to you for a reason, but then like who is the person sort of like orchestrated like that? That is very Rich Pauly, very like deep statey, honestly.
Yeah, because it's like, we know obviously Taylor's not calling up Roger Goodell to talk about how many times she wants to be shown on a game. That's Tree Payne. And it is interesting because I'm sure Tree's job is very stressful. I cannot imagine. But also it's interesting, like how many different hats she has to wear, because she's essentially like shaping the public narrative around the most famous person in the world. That's basically her job. And that shows up in, to your point, like when the NFL is posting photos of her on Instagram, Taylor now famously does these kind of tunnel fit walks almost into the game. I think it's for security reasons that she does enter that way, but clearly there's paparazzi waiting, like it's set up in advance. Right. That would not be happening if Tree Payne did not sign off on that. There would be no one there if she didn't want it, So it is, it's interesting because I think to your point, like Tree is so instrumental in shaping how we perceive Taylor Swift publicly.
Mm-hmm. And like everyone sees the like the hand is no longer invisible, I guess. Is like everyone knows that like that they are being marketed to. And it's like even thinking about the way that like the degree to which we know about Tree Payne, which I did unfortunately look it up. Her first name is Trina, which like I was really hoping she would actually be Tree Payne, but I don't know. It's like they are working around our knowledge of the fact that it is an op. I don't know. Like,
right.
It's so far denatured from conversations about authenticity that like the new like metatextual element of it all is like super fascinating to me.
Yeah, I'm only saying this because I feel like I need to use my master's degree for something. But I got my master's and my thesis was all about how celebrities use Instagram to how they present online to as like a instrument for their own celebrity. And so I analyzed the top 50 most followed celebrities on Instagram and looked at a year of their content. Obviously, one of those people was Taylor Swift. And obviously, as you might imagine, Taylor Swift rarely posts on Instagram. And occasionally she will post these personal pieces of her life, but they're typically curated in these slideshows of images using, they call it like a fuck ass filter in the Swiftie world. It's like this kind of sepia tone filter that she uses on her digital camera that is in like every single photo roundup of her friends you've ever probably seen online. But she clearly has a strategy that I would imagine Tree Payne is overseen to some degree of what she's sharing publicly. And Taylor is so reserved in so many ways online of what she's sharing, but then in so many other ways, she's so public with her persona and being out in the world that it's just an interesting dichotomy, and that Tree Payne is kind of navigating both sides of what Taylor wants. Like her Instagram version, I would say, is like pretty closed off and guarded, but then her public persona, like she goes to the Super Bowl, which she doesn't have to go if she, didn't want to be seen. So it's interesting.
Could conceivably sneak in or be more low profile or whatever.
Right. This has me thinking about the Rich Paul comp and wondering if like LeBron doing that like fuck ass drawing of Bart Simpson's big ass head, or like his like stupid Taco Tuesday post, if this is all like actually like a very carefully like dialed in op.
You know what's interesting? So in my thesis, I found that most male celebrities have way less of a strategy than the female celebrities, which isn't that surprising, I think, because women, I think, are more scrutinized and criticized online for what they post than men. It's like the male celebrities, for example, like The Rock, a lot of these major, Messi, Ronaldo, post these long posts with their photos of their kids to millions of people, whereas female celebrities rarely post photos of their kids, what's going on in their personal lives. So I actually think there's less strategy around some of these male athletes than the female athletes, or even just female celebrities in general, but using athletes as the example, that I would say LeBron probably doesn't have as much strategy as you would think. But I would say Caitlin Clark, for example, has probably a lot of strategy around what she is and is not posting online.
Yeah, it's just like the inherent vice of just like online misogyny means that like you just have to be more strategic.
Yeah, and you just have to be so much more careful about what you choose to share and what you don't share.
That sucks. I want Caitlin or Angel Reese or whoever to be able to show their stupid Bart Simpson drawings. Like that's the stuff I like.
I would love that.
What you were saying, Patrick, about this willful kind of like charade we're doing is interesting, especially almost in the context of gossip, where it used to be like the charade was what we were seeing on TV, and then gossip was the way to like get under the charade and sort of see what was going on. But now the like gossip tabloid level one is the charade. We are watching this like completely rehearsed gossip apparatus, and like to actually get real gossip, you have to go the step below and like be either analyzing like either a step below celebrity, their detritus, or be actually going after these agents, these tree tree paint type agents, like that's actually the gossip that tells that is, if you are in search of any modicum of authenticity, the puppeteers are more interesting than the puppets. Like
100%. Yeah, I mean, look at the Justin Baldoni lawsuit, when those text messages were subpoenaed of the publicists talking about how are we going to damage Blake Lively's reputation online. It's like, that was, I feel like, the perfect example for people who don't know, like a look under the hood of like how the celebrity universe operates.
Totally.
Mm-hmm.
It's also fun.
It's like,
oh, go ahead. Yeah.
I was just going to say, like, Pop Crave or like the NBA Central in the sports analog, these present as these like kind of almost gossipy like interlocutors, but they are totally used as like state propaganda to use.
Right. 100%. 100%. Yeah.
And then, okay, last thread on this or that I have is I am now almost like, is gossip, I'm sounding like Bill Simmons right now, but is gossip having a moment? Because I am like the appetite for your show, which is because it's good, but also because people, like you were saying at the top, is I want to hear about all this. And then these emerging media shops like Puck and Feed Me, Emily Sundberg's publication, and even I guess like Defector to some degree as a
normal gossip, dog.
Right, normal gossip.
Kelsey's book is a bestseller in its first week.
Perfect example, yes. That this and just sort of a return Substack, even like a return to blogging. I wonder if there is this people are tired of the overly like they want some connection with like real gossip or real scoop stuff because everything else feels so sanded down.
I think they do. And I think sports almost feels like, in a weird way, kind of the last frontier of it, because it operates from such an old school legacy model that like there was never a place for this type of content. Like, for example, during a broadcast, but now you hear them mention things about, oh, he just had a baby. I mean, it's not very often. Trust me, I would love for them to have like us lead a simulcast with where we're doing that for an entire game. Maybe that'll happen eventually, but it is interesting to see. You're seeing like tidbits of it more pop up in legacy media during games. And then during some of the segments they're doing like at halftime and things like that, where they're interviewing players more about what's going on off the field. But it does feel like gossip is having a moment. And I do feel like it's because they got permission to talk about these things when they realized that people cared about Taylor Swift dating Travis Kelce. I mean, to me, that feels like the turning point in gossip being at the forefront, especially in sports, was they were like, oh, wow, people care about sports, but don't care about like how many touchdowns a player has. Oh my God. And they're like, wow, where's this audience been? And it's like, what is it? Like 50% of the NFL audience was already women or some crazy stat like that. It's like, babe, we've already been here. You just were too afraid to talk about it, because I think sports is like a very male dominated world. And I think no one wants to come across as like, oh, we're not being serious sports journalists. And so everyone's afraid to do it. And then when Taylor started dating Travis, everyone's like, oh, I guess we can talk about these things. And then now it's kind of had a ripple effect in all other sports.
Sports is also, I think that's like totally a good read. And I think the thing that about sports that also makes it like the perfect medium for this is that there are low stakes. It's literally just like the Patriots won the football game. And so treating that with like the seriousness of like a 5 byline Times article about like Democratic Republic of Congo's like foreign policy is just like weirdly misaligned. So there's like this harmony, I think, of like talking about like, oh, Jalen Brunson just had a kid or whatever. Like that is like actually more in line with like the emotional stakes of like watching a game.
Yes, totally. Yeah.
Oh God. There's a lot of meat on this bone, because I am also thinking about how the players themselves are trying to create podcasts. They're trying to sort of turn themselves into brands via their words. But there's actually, I think, a yearn for a deeper thing, which is their actions off the court to be covered. But there's a tension there where like the players want their words out there, but they don't want their kind of embarrassing, cumin actions to be out there, which
right.
Gets this, which is why one reading of the hollowness of these player podcasts, because it's like, well, you're talking about all this stuff, but like what I really want to know is the shit you're doing.
Exactly. And I think you can tell it's like these podcasts are never saying much. It's just like air podcasts. But then you never, to your point, like you rarely learn anything that interesting about these players on those player-led podcasts. Sometimes you do, but I would say 9 times out of 10, you're not learning anything you couldn't Google yourself.
Dude, I'm spinning Curious Mike. I'm learning like all kinds of things that Michael Porter Jr. thinks about, like how gravity works, like what dinosaurs were. Like that to me is the ideal player podcast, because it's like it embraces this like fluffy emptiness of the form, but like totally
I would love a
unintentionally.
podcast from a player that's not about the sport. Like give me a podcast from an athlete who's super into knitting or something. I don't know, like just anything. Like again, to your point about like wanting something about their personal lives, like make the podcast about what you're interested in. Cause I know the only thing they're interested in is not just sports. Like even if LeBron James had some podcast about wine, I actually think, he's a big wine guy. Like that would be interesting, having people on talking to sommeliers. Like I'm actually that I think would tell me more about LeBron James than him talking about the X's and O's on that JJ Redick podcast he did. Dude,
totally. And he could get access. Like he would get like really good wine people to come on, and like
you get anyone.
And you would like see how his brain worked, like the way he like could describe how a Cabernet tastes or whatever would like, like you said, it's like, the well-roundedness is so interesting here.
Melo and Braun doing Mind the Game, but about
so
grapes.
good.
Wow. Okay.
Like my
That'd be
favorite
amazing.
celebrity sort of podcast related phenomenon is Dua Lipa's book club thing, because she's like a real like literature head. Like she had like Olga Tokarczuk on, like she genuinely knows ball.
Yeah.
And it's like her celebrity isn't like really a part of the show, but it is like this thing that's like being formed around the show.
Well, because it feels authentic, because she actually seems interested in the subject matter. Whereas so many of these podcasts, you're like, this just feels like some agent was like, you need a podcast, you need an alternate revenue stream, blah, blah, blah. You need to have some different IP. And like, then you have this just kind of poorly executed player podcast that will be around for 2 seasons and you'll never hear of it again.
Yeah, the Patrick Beverly ex-Israel experience.
Exactly. Okay, well, speaking of controversial things in the NBA media world, we want to talk about the curious case of NBA Sentinel. Madeline, you interviewed the creator of NBA Sentinel on your newsletter, which I highly suggest people check this out. You maintained or like he's anonymous, or they are anonymous. I want to say at the top that I do not like NBA Sentinel. I believe that he is my political enemy.
Okay.
Why?
Because I believe in truth. I believe in consensus reality, and I feel like I guess it would go like Donald Trump, Elon Musk, and then this person who's running this thing as like the 3 biggest, threats to consensus reality. I'm kind of joking, but I'm actually kind of not joking. The amount of this specific style of like nihilistic trolling is old for me at this point. I am just like this is actually just getting in the way of me trying to consume information in like a normal linear way, because I'm like constantly on edge about if I'm getting punked by a Twitter account, which I just find to be really annoying. And whatever, says something more about probably these platforms than it does about this individual person, though it's not how I would be choosing to cake up. I would be coming up with something else. All of that being said, I don't know the person at all. Without doxing them in any real way, what were they like? Like, what was their vibe?
Well, they only answer questions over
DMs,
email.
Right.
So I didn't speak to them on Zoom. I do think that they may be Canadian, because their favorite team were the Raptors, which feels super random. I just feel like that's so random. So no, I didn't unfortunately get much of a vibe because I didn't talk to them on Zoom. But it was interesting, I think, thinking about like this person is just anonymous and they're just a fan of the NBA running like basically it's a fake news account. But I would say though, I have maybe a controversial take. I think what's interesting about NBA Sentinel and the Pooh Craves of the world is I think it makes you take a beat to remember where your own media literacy lies. I mean, talking about the Aaron Rodgers thing, like to me, it's a great marker of the current state of journalism that, I mean, I've been bamboozled by NBA Sentinel before, and I'm sure you both have, that it's like, it definitely says a lot about our society that the amount of times that content is retweeted, presumably by people who think it's real because they're just looking at it quickly and they're not looking at the handle and they're not taking a second to like read the quote, a second time. That I do think it is interesting. I agree. I think it does get in the way of like trying to consume real content from real journalists that's fact checked about these stories. But I do think it says a lot more about us and how we consume content than I think them running the account.
Yeah, I see them as like the raw id of like NBA or like pop culture discourse or whatever. Like the things they're like the jokes they are making are like have some form of spiritual truth, and they're just like taken out to their extremes. Like they are only posting stuff that pops, and they're like just jokes about like, oh, Joel Embiid's leg falls off or whatever. Like those are funny to the audience because they're like exaggerations of like things that actually exist IRL. And so like everyone who is reading the like officially state sanctioned version of the Joel Embiid leg story can like read between the lines and see that like the Ballsack Sports, the NBA Centel version is like, it's like on the spectrum of things that could actually happen.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, that's fair. No, you're right that they are. I guess there's like the Chuck Klosterman has this book about villains, and he outlines this. I think it was a Mussolini quote. I'm really calling these guys. I'm taking a page out of the liberal media playbook by calling my enemies fascists. Which is, he says a villain is the somebody who knows the most and does the least. And there's like a powerful there's like a good faith reading of what you're saying, Patrick, which is like, yeah, you're right. Like the system is broken. The system in which, and what you're saying as well, Madeline, the system is completely fried. We are getting information in the stupidest possible way that is almost designed for us to be, wrong or misled willfully in this kind of haze. These people are just aware of that and, making light of that fact. The bad faith, or sort of like my interpretation of it, is there's this kind of like seeing the nihilism of this situation and trying to like get a low level laugh off that I'm like, that's when I go boomer mode and I'm like, these fucking kids are fucking with my consensus reality.
I think that's actually what's happening. Like if you do like a serious academic reading of the last like 200 NBA Central posts, it's just
Madeline's
like
next thesis.
I'm like, I'm doing it for my
common
PhD.
Denominator. Yeah, seriously. It's like lowest common denominator bullshit. It's sports gambling. It's like there's no originality to it. Like it's just basically like cynical. Like it's honestly use the word nihilism, and like that is what it feels like.
Right.
Yeah.
I have a few. Of course, I want to respect this person's anonymity, but I am about to dox him in that
Wait. Sorry, I just realized. Canadian Toronto Raptors Kobe Bryant stan. What other notable enemy of nothing but respect does that describe? Just saying.
Whoa.
I'm actually, is he part of the Ball Don't Stop army? Is this part of the Ball Don't Stop content wing? That is so funny.
Or is like, are the ways that they see the NBA, like, obviously they're broken along different lines, but what if they're like similarly broken? Not because they're Canadian or Kobe Bryant stans, but like, what if those explain like the borked way that they see the NBA?
No, what's going on in Canada? The film Red Rooms that I highly suggest everybody check out is this very sinister movie about a mass murderer and these two women who become obsessed with the mass murderer, and there's all kinds of like dark web stuff, and these people whose brains are just like colossally broken in this way by the internet. Takes place in Quebec, French Canada. So is there something going on in Canada with these people? Is there is something in the internet with the cold? Like maybe
something's in the air.
Something is in the air. To counter your thought that it's a wing of the BDS army, this person is without a doubt a listener of the Bill Simmons podcast, and I know this to be true because their hot takes, which they gave you, which were, again, I want to separate the art from the artist, but they're not hot at all, which were, I think the Celtics have a strong chance of going back-to-back this season. Okay, thank you, Bill. Another bold prediction, keep an eye on Wemby. He could lead the Spurs to a deep playoff run sooner than expected. That is word for word Bill Simmons ringer canon. That's fine. I am an avid Bill Simmons listener. I'm not, don't hate the player. but we're zeroing our universe. This guy is possibly Canadian, possibly from Massachusetts, possibly I guess that, if he's a Bill Simmons listener, that puts him between 27 and 65.
Both ends of the Belichick spectrum.
Yeah, right. Yeah. It's Jordan Hudson. That's the conclusion. It's Jordan Hudson. She is from Massachusetts, I believe.
Okay.
Or Maine or something up there.
Yeah.
I did like that you asked the NBA Central person for some actual NBA takes and that they were these totally banal things, because like I feel like if you were fascinated about the NBA Central person as a person and like, oh, do they actually have some special insight into basketball? I do like that the answer they basically gave is the like most bland possible, like feeling good. Everything's fine.
Right.
The last thing in your article that is you talked to them and they mentioned that a unnamed NBA GM has DM'd them. Again, no doubt in my mind that this is Daryl Morey.
Oh,
yeah,
for
that's
sure.
what I was thinking.
100%. I don't think that's a question.
You might as well just
For
say
sure.
it. Yeah, like
Yeah,
that.
for sure.
Daryl Morey's at it. So we can move on from there. But thank you, Daryl Morey, for DMing this person. And I'm if Mr. or Mrs. Sentinel, if you're reading this, if this is there's nothing personal. You're in a quorum of people who I believe are melting my brain, and I can't really hate you specifically, because then I gotta hate Legion Hoops, I gotta hate all the other ones.
But speaking of antidotes to this, Madeline, I really liked your interview with the Art But Make It Sports person. I thought that was one of my favorite things.
He's amazing.
What did you learn from that?
Oh my God. We talked for so long. He's incredible. He showed me his camera, like the folder on his phone on Zoom of all of the art. And it's real. I mean, he's now been on Pablo Torre and had a bunch of other interviews now and shown it. But it's so impressive, his ability to converge his interests of sports and art in a way that he's not using AI. It really is him pulling all of these pieces from memory, essentially.
Incredible.
And it's just amazing. I think it's such an interesting concept. And I love to see now that he's doing like deals with the NFL. He did something for Apple TV, I think, for like an MLS, I don't know, something. So it's nice to see that he's like getting some recognition for, his insane brain, because it's, I don't understand how he does it. It's crazy. But he has done for me some custom like gossip moments, Art But Make It Sports, which was very, very cool of him to do.
Yeah, that's great. Like that's like, I don't know. I find that account to be one of the best ones. And I thought like,
yeah,
anyone who's interested in like, honestly, any of the things we're talking about, I think you could learn a lot from that piece.
Oh, for sure.
No, totally. Agreed. Okay. That's all I got. Any Patrick, any final cues for Madeline?
I do. Over All-Star break, every NBA player got engaged.
Right. Oh, we do need to talk about this, because this is another deep state agent I want to talk about.
Like all of them. Like the two guys who got traded to the Bucks, one of whom is evil, one of whom is stupid, both got engaged. Keegan Murray got engaged. Like I feel like every time I would open up any social media, it's just like there's another person with, as you outlined, the like template athlete wedding aesthetic kind of going. So like, why? I don't know. Do you have any takes on that?
What's going on?
With that, well, so I've noticed for a long time that these athletes, for anyone who hasn't read the piece, basically my thesis is that all athlete weddings look the same. And why is that? And it could be because they're using wedding planners that are in kind of the same universe. That could be a reason. Could be because they're getting ideas from the same Pinterest board. But what's interesting, it's all these very opulent displays of wealth via the amount of florals they have at their wedding. And they're typically these floral arches with very compressed white flowers with some greenery popping through. Sometimes they do use pops of color, and there's some sort of arch that they've made at the, the end of the
arch was
aisle.
Really kind of like fascinating to me.
Yeah.
The arch is crucial. And it's not always just like a traditional arch. Sometimes it's like an interpretive arch, like a little wave in it, or it's a half arch, or it's flowers on the side, and then it's like a wooden arch. I mean, there's so many different versions of this, but it's interesting because they are all the exact same aesthetic. Rarely do you see an athlete wedding using, I talked about this in my piece about it, use birch floral, which I don't know if you know who birch floral is, but they're like the cool girl florist who Glossier famously hired to put flowers in their corporate offices and their stores in New York. I think when they were kind of like having their first initial big buzz however many years ago that was, not 10 years ago now, that I'm like, where's a birch floral athlete wedding. Like, give me that. Give me something interesting and different. And they all have the same aesthetic in the same way, like that most of the brides, for the most part, are wearing like the same kind of strapless gown in the same style. It all just feels connected, that they want to be accepted and included. And like, here's my display of wealth at my very expensive wedding. And I want to show this off to all my other athlete friends. And so that we can all feel like we have this socially acceptable currency of compressed flowers as our like signal to our wealth and success. Almost. I don't know. That's my working thesis.
I think it checks out to me, and you guys really got to look at this because it's a visual thing, but
uncanny
when you see all the photos of everybody together. Like, even you could probably create a color palette of athlete weddings that it basically exists in the same universe. Like, it would be one brand's color palette would be at what every single wedding is using. The one thing I'll add, which I was thinking about, is this the level of like Vogue covering a lot of this stuff, because a lot of this stuff does get run through this Vogue exclusive, and that is this funny, probably dying aristocratic thing where Vogue like covers rich people weddings, and Vogue has an aesthetic which I think is fairly consistent and is fairly aligned with like compressed flower, soft whites, inoffensive, zero like airspace ass stuff. And so there is this element of like, is there a feedback loop where they're all looking at Vogue weddings, they're all being inspired by Vogue weddings, they're all trying to get on Vogue, and then they are like reverse engineering Vogue weddings?
Oh, yeah, it's all 100% connected. You can also even look at the photography style. So when you look at athlete weddings, they typically I could send you examples of these photographers. There's like these, I think his name Norman Blake or something like that. He does all of the Vogue weddings. Yeah, add him to the list. And he does a lot of these athlete weddings, and it's kind of just like generic, light washed photos. They look nice, like no shade to this photographer. So there's that piece, but then there's also what Vogue will do, interestingly, is the more cool girl weddings will be weddings with film photography, flash photography, feels more organic and natural. Typically the reception is at like a Balthazar, a restaurant, there's some cool people at the wedding. So there's almost like these two aesthetics that are happening simultaneously on Vogue's wedding coverage. There's this like opulent display of wealth with a 5-day wedding in Mallorca. And then there's like, we got married at City Hall. I'm an art dealer. My wife is a model. We met on Raya. Right. And we're using a fashion photographer as our wedding photographer because we're cool. And they're both happening at the same time. And you can see that translate into quote unquote regular people weddings, that both of those Pinterest boards are showing up. So it's interesting. Vogue, 100%, I agree. Like, it all kind of goes back to them, and they're dictating almost the wedding aesthetic culture, and athletes are pulling from it and non-athletes are pulling from it. You kind of like see the same, but it's just interesting, these two parallel aesthetics that happen at the same time with their coverage.
That is interesting. And I remember one of the first things we talked about on this podcast was the Dave McMenamin, Malika Andrews wedding. And I want to go back and see if it hewed to this aesthetic you just outlined. Like, I think that's like
I can't remember if that one, I feel like it did, but maybe I'm wrong. Maybe
it was in Vogue. It was in Vogue. Sorry, whatever.
Also, that is super interesting about like who's borrowing from whom and like where this all comes from. Like,
because ultimately Vogue is still a fashion publication at the end of the day. And so they still want to appeal to their fashion segment of consumers and also the people in the fashion world who want their wedding featured in Vogue. It's like they're not wearing some of them are wearing a Vera Wang dress, but most of the time they're like, we're wearing Danielle Frankel, if you know that brand. That's like a cool girl brand. Or a Vivienne Westwood dress. That's, I would say, a little bit more of a cool girl wedding brand that I would maybe argue is now a little overdone, but I don't think your listeners care to hear about that.
You may be surprised.
Hey, you never know. You never know. But it is interesting because it's like they're still trying to appeal to that segment, because at the end of the day, Anna Wintour still runs the show. But then they're also clearly tapping into, again, I think kind of the Taylor Swift effect. You're seeing more and more athlete weddings being covered by Vogue than you used to. I would say most of the time you would see it in like Brides or People magazine. And now they're getting the same level of profile that some of these actresses and cool girl, New York Times Square-esque weddings are getting the same coverage that Vogue typically would just reserve to them.
That's interesting. Like those other publications are like the NBA Central, and Vogue is like ESPN. Like they're like moving up in
it is.
Along that same, that's super interesting.
And the sort of, you can plot the decentralization of culture via the aesthetic of weddings, like changing and moving from what used to basically be like the 1% of the economy to now the 1% of the attention economy.
Right. Like I would love to see with the wedding coverage if eventually athletes start doing the New York Times engagement announcements. That would be interesting. Like, are there any athletes who are maybe like, I don't know, a little more intellectual and they want their little, head pressed against their partner photo that you see in the vows section? That would be interesting.
Get a fucking Spencer Dinwiddie doing Grub Street diet.
I would love it.
Where do we stop? Whatever.
Well,
Exactly.
this is like, Substack asked Kyle Kuzma. He's doing like little blogs about what it feels like to be traded and stuff. And so he would be maybe a candidate, except he did the classic splashy, like roses everywhere, more trad.
Yes.
I guess in this context, trad, like aesthetic thing.
Yep, totally.
Last thing, who the hell is Mandy Weiss? And actually, I'll say
Mindy Weiss.
Mindy Weiss, sorry, Mindy Weiss. So you're on my list, Mindy, even though I said your name wrong. The last thing I will say, actually, before you say something about Mindy, because I think this is important, because the other way that a lot of this trickles down and why the Vogue component is important is even if the athletes themselves are not reading, or even the athletes' wives are not reading Vogue, which I guess I don't know whether or not they are, but there is this stylist class that certainly are reading Vogue. And those people are all like, when I think about NBA style, how a lot of this ends up getting run through this weird class of NBA stylists that are suggesting, people. And you get this weird thing where it's like, it's not quite Steph Curry's personal style. It's Steph Curry's style run through the prism of like 6 nameless stylists. But all of these people are kind of like deeply in this legacy media, stylist ecosystem, because the only way you get to be Steph Curry's stylist is if at one point you like worked at Vogue or whatever. Right. So there's this kind of weird door. And with all of that in mind, I need to know who Mindy Weiss is.
Mindy Weiss is the premier wedding planner. She's the wedding planner to the stars, and there are essentially a lot of copycats who have copied Mindy Weiss's aesthetic or worked for her and then have launched their own businesses. But all of the weddings are very similar. It's a lot of compressed florals, very opulent weddings, multiple days with multiple Pinterest boards of what you have to wear to every single event.
Whoa.
Oh, yeah, that's very much a thing. And I think a lot of these athletes and celebrities in general want to work with her because she has relationships with these publications like Vogue that oftentimes, and it's not a guarantee, of course, that your wedding will be in Vogue if you work with Mindy Weiss, but I think there's a much higher chance because of the cultural currency she holds with Vogue and her own relationship with them. But she has 100% carved out an aesthetic for herself that is like unmatched. I mean, is it my favorite aesthetic? No, but it's like, it is very distinct, and you can see the trickle down in the same way. I mean, I always think of the famous line in The Devil Wears Prada, the cerulean blue, like that she is the one in the room making the decision. And then weddings all across the world have copied that aesthetic to some degree, even if the wedding didn't cost $1 million and cost $10,000 or less, that they're pulling the same images on Pinterest from her events, no matter what. So she is very influential. I would love to interview her. I'm sure she'd be a fascinating interviewer.
Yeah, Mindy, if you're listening, email Madeline, email us, email everyone.
I would love, oh my God, if she listened, I would die.
Well,
thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm happy to come back anytime.
Beautiful. And yes, seriously, this was really, I absolutely learned a lot. I'm sure Patrick and our listeners did as well. Where do you have, other than the Sports Gossip Show and Impersonal Foul, anything else to plug? Anything? I mean, those are two.
Those are the main things.
That's an empire right there.
It's my Sports Gossip empire. Follow Impersonal Foul Sports Gossip, or follow Impersonal Foul at impersonalfoul.com. And then Sports Gossip Show, sportsgossipshow.com/listen to listen or watch our episodes, and follow us on TikTok and Instagram at Sports Gossip Show.
And follow Bill Belichick's girlfriend.
Yeah, and I don't know. I care. I think her handle's Jordan Isabella or something like that.